We'll call the meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'll introduce the panel members first. I'm Marcel Laronda, I'll be chairing. Mark Borowski to my left and Kent Seelan to my far left. The assessor today is Matt Baracus, and our administrative assistant today is Kelsey Harrison. We'll be hearing applications for revision of assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit the discussions to those matters. The statements that the applicant or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matter must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that we mail to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemption from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible, and as information, all public hearings are recorded and will be part of the public record. Please put your phones on silent. Red is dead. You can swear them in. Please. Kelsey. I'm always the biggest offender with that.
You were first.
Yeah.
Could you please state your name? And do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Could you please state your name?
Jared Story?
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, when you are ready, we'll be starting with 2187 Portage Avenue, amount of assessed value.
File number 19 -2146, roll number 07050055, 0002187, Portage Avenue, roll year 2020, reference date April 1st, 2018, assessed value $1,906,000. It's an apartment.
File number?
19-2146.
Thank you.
Corner of Moorgate, Portage. It's an apartment, 1953. We don't have an effective year built on record. 24 suites, 10 outdoor parking spots, no indoor parking spots. Construction class C, concrete with masonry ground walls. Page 2, the handed the mailers in. Good there. Page 3 shows out the 24 suites. We've got split 50-50 bachelor and one bedroom units. The average monthly rent signed by the model is $710.18. With our modeled expense ratio and cap rate as per age, area, and size. Capped at 5.3%. Estimated market value, $1,906,000. See on page 4, these are the rent comparables. Down that way on Portage, you'll see the average monthly rent of the comparables is similar to that of the subject property. They are a mix of, comparable number one has bachelor units, 1-bedroom units, and some 2-bedroom units. Comparables 2 to 3, they're just 1-bedroom units. At 710, we're at the lower end on the scale on rent. Rents in the area support what's assigned in the model. Effective year built on this property and construction class is highly similar, as well as the subject property. Page 4A, these are the examples of sales that took place in the reference period. You've all seen these before. So that, again, they're not meant to substantiate, they're not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property, but they're to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates based on actual income and expenses. These are the cap rates that are calculated. So we have some examples here. Third table down, 4.03 to 5. Some examples. Again, board, we've all talked about that a lot. I won't dwell on this page, we've talked about it and all seen it before. Page 5 is our cap rate chart. Page 8 is the gross potential rent from the end of 2017 as submitted to us. So you'll see the rental incomes after concession, the far table, rather column to the right. So, page 7 on this property. We don't have an effective year built on this property. So when I was reviewing it, one thing that really stood out to me is you look at the maintenance and decorating on this property. They got $171,629 in 2017. Compared to previous years where it was much smaller, that 171,629 is 7151 per unit. So that is far above what we typically see. It looks like they did a bunch of work on this place in 2017. So the model is only assigning an effective gross income of $199,214 to this. They've collected the year of the big, while the rentals were going on, 211,298. And as we are valuing the current condition, it looks like, in my opinion, the numbers here for 2017 don't reflect the current condition of the property, which is what we're valuing as of the reference date, but it is the current condition of the property. So model parameters were kept on this one. It'd be good to get out there and do an inspection on it. The only picture I could find was on page 10, which is the outside of the building. Looks like those could be some newer windows, but I haven't had the opportunity to drive by it. Model parameters were used. It looks like it's had a lot of work done. So that's my evidence. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
Garrett?
Thank you very much. Okay, my first question. My understanding is the IAAO standards say that if there's an increase over a certain threshold, that a desktop review of the property should be conducted. Is that true?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The IAAO standards that you use? No?
that-
Okay, that's fine. The first thing that jumped out to me is that there's an increase in value on this property of 43% over last cycle. Does that not seem atypical to you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was cut from 1.6 to 1.335.
Okay, so, and this building is 66 years old, built in 1953,
Yes.
and we've made no adjustment for the age variance, is that correct?
No, but the amount of renos they did looks like that we should go and take a closer look at it.
Right, and the renovations, would that be decorative, or would that be structural or the foundation?
Again, I haven't inspected the
Okay,
property, so I
that's
can't
fine.
comment on it.
Fair enough. Now, page 3 on your income value summary, you've got these inputs, and I'm going to assume that they're all modeled, is that correct?
Yes,
And you didn't see the need to override them at all?
that's correct.
Okay. But you do see that we're achieving higher than average rents, so would that not dictate to you that the expense ratio ought to be higher?
No,
No, you don't think that if we, in order to achieve higher rents, you have to spend more money on maintenance and upkeep in order to obtain those higher rents?
well, it depends on how recently a whole bunch of work was done.
Right.
Like if they did, 7,000 per unit, I mean, in the years following, you're not gonna have to do as much because that work's already been covered.
Okay, but you wouldn't stabilize that over the life of the building?
Well, it's tough when it's the most recent year
Okay.
where the huge chunk of work has been done.
Okay, the rent comps, did you select these yourself on page 4?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what's interesting is you've got, the next property we're gonna look at, Woodlawn, is in here. And you've got it at 732, but that number's different in the brief when you modeled it, so how would that happen?
Well, this would be the actual rents that they reported, and the model rents would be the rent assigned to it by the model for assessment purposes.
All right, and, okay, cap rates, now we've all heard this argument a number of times, but by now you're aware that 3 of your 4 sales were purchased with the intention to renovate?
Well, I mean, there is the information on the Roche where they said they were gonna do 100,000 of renos, which works out to roughly about 2.7% of the total sale price.
Is that in 1 year, or is that?
That's just what they said they were going to do.
Okay.
So that's about additional for the 36 suites off the top of my head.
Okay. Would you agree, though, that when you're purchasing an asset for the intention to renovate it and reposition it on the market, you're purchasing something that's more akin to a discount rate or an economic opportunity as opposed to the value of the rents in place or the income stream in place?
Well, I know, we've seen the rebuttal before, that there's information in regards to saying that in order for the current rents at the time of purchase to be ignored in terms of looking towards a cap rate, the renovation would have to be substantial. 2.7% of the overall purchase price doesn't seem like a substantial figure based on what they purchased it for.
But what about the long term? What are they gonna do over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years?
Again,
You didn't investigate it, is that the?
well, I mean, that would be the future.
All right, now I have a rebuttal on the assessor's cap rates entered into evidence. We'll do on that, I'm going to suggest that these are cap rates that were sales that were done with the intention to renovate. Okay, and now I guess the other question, last question on cap rates. This table is all the city is going to provide to the ratepayer this cycle, is that correct?
We've got that table, and then we've got a couple sales here that we provided as well.
Okay, but no, no backup documents, no supporting calculations?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, you've included the broker studies, which seem a ways off from yours, and the reason that broker studies include, for the most part, closing costs and land transfer fees, so they would be depressed, their cap rates would generally be higher, and then they're also only dealing with what we'll call investment grade properties, is that correct?
I don't have any detailed information in regards to that. All I have is the figures.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Mark, questions?
None.
Kent, any questions?
Were there any permits pulled of this property?
No, I couldn't find. I looked for permits. A lot of the times, no, I haven't inspected, but they're just, not everything requires a permit, but not everyone takes out a permit to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your comparables on page 4. You've got 12 bachelors and 12, it's a 50-50 split. None of the other ones are 50-50. Most of them are all 1-bedrooms,
Yes.
and the only other one is the one with the larger building on Portage Avenue.
Comparable one, yes.
Still not a 50-50 split, it's got more extra. Is there not a building right next door, like a sister building to this one, that you could have brought the numbers in on?
If it didn't come up in the search, then I didn't see it.
Okay. On with your presentation.
Thank you very much. Okay. 2187 Portage Avenue. This is a building called the Moorgate. Now, this is a very competitive stretch of multifamily down in Portage. I counted one time, I believe it was 39 apartment buildings between Overdale and Moorgate. So there's a huge density of apartment buildings here. This one was built in 1953. We see no age variance, and there has been work done to, that'll be reflected in the rents, but we haven't seen anything that would effectively alter the effective useful life of this building. We've got 12 bachelor suites and 12 one-bedrooms. The city is suggesting a 2020 realty assessment of $1,906,000, and we are saying that an assessment of $1,463,000 is more appropriate. So again, we're at the northwest corner of Moorgate and Portage. This is St. James Assiniboine. 3-story structure, built in 53, being used as a multifamily res building. The site size, according to the city of Winnipeg, is 16,346 square feet and is zoned RMFL. We have a total of 24 units again, 12 bachelors, 12 one-bedrooms, and 10 outdoor parking stalls. For the purpose of this assignment, we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.3%. We're instead using a rate of 6.25%. Now, if you look at my table on page 5, you'll see that our study, which has been supplied to you, with all of our calculations and backups, show that a building built between 46 and 59 ought to carry a cap rate of 6.25%, barring any abnormalities that require adjustment. We're suggesting that this building is true to its vintage, and a 6 1/4 cap is reasonable. Therefore, we are looking for an assessment of $1,463,000. So on my workup, you'll see that the assessor has rightly pointed out that there's been some work done to this building that has led to higher rents. So our potential gross market rents are higher than the city's model. Our effective gross income is higher than the city's model. We recognize that there's revenue that's picked up from parking and laundry. And then when we go to our expenses, you'll see this is where we start to diverge. Where you have an expense ratio of 58.3%, where the city's model is suggesting that we ought to have 49.3%. Now, as I alluded to in my presentation, the increased expense ratio makes sense because we are achieving higher than average rent. So these variables are interdependent of one another. In order to achieve higher than market rents, we need to spend a great deal of money on repair and maintenance. Now, the assessor has also pointed out that we have an atypical year, to be certain, in 2017, but we have not used that in our stabilization. We've instead used 2016 as a most typical year, which gives us $1,800 per suite. That would be well in line with what the city would see, and what we would see as typical, and that would represent a market view. So where we diverge is on the NOI. We're suggesting $91,409 after we take out our actual expenses. The city is at $101,021. And again, the cap rate becomes the material issue here, where we are suggesting 6 1/4 for a building of this vintage, and the city is modeling 5.3%. So with all of those points taken into consideration, we come to an indicated market value for the 2020 assessment cycle of $1,463,000, and we respectfully submit that this board adjust that value based on our evidence. Now, I've included some photos. You can see there is a sister building, as you rightly pointed out, next door. That's an aerial view from page 9. You can see the exterior. You might be familiar with this building, Moorgate. And I do have some interior photos to show that they have done some refreshing, just like new vinyl windows, new flooring. Certainly, we're not disputing that the building is kept in good shape and it is desirable, but that is reflected in the rents, I would suggest. So that's my presentation. Barring any questions, thank you very much.
Matt, any questions?
Yeah, I have some cap rate rebuttal too to submit.
You haven't submitted it yet? We've all seen it.
We've seen it, we won't go over it.
Yep, we don't have to go over it.
So just to be submitted on the record there.
May I put mine in as well?
Don't we have yours here?
No, not my reply.
We'll just,
Yeah.
we'll grab it from you and distribute it.
So again, those are just, the sales mailers indicating that for two of the properties in the Altus cap rate study, the purchasers declared that they had assumed lower cap rates.
Yep. We've heard it.
That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Thank you.
So for this one here, on your workup page, I think that's page 6.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the overall average R&M for the 5 years on this place. And on a per suite basis, that's $3,889 per suite. Does that seem?
Sorry, which numbers are you using to?
Oh, I just took the average, the 93,350,
Yeah.
and then I divided it by 24. So
Yeah,
on
but that includes the 169, which we've not included. So no, that would be way too high. We're using 1,856. We stabilized it. We recognize that 17 is an atypical year.
okay, would you just describe the other years as atypical?
I would describe the year where they spent $170,000 as atypical, yes. I'm suggesting that 1,800 per suite is not atypical.
But, so 13 to 16, you think are typical
13 to 16
for R&M?
would be, well, we're not using 13 to 16.
Yeah, I know you're not using it, just in terms of getting an idea of the overall condition of the property.
Right, we're stabilizing it?
Yeah, I know how you calculate it.
Yeah. So this is how somebody would potentially look at this as an investment. They would stabilize what they think they might have to spend in order to maintain a building that was built in 1953. So are you saying that 1,800 a suite is not reasonable?
Did they receive an RTB bump based on the amount of renovations
I
they
would
did?
imagine they would have, yeah. It looks like it.
When looking at the step up in rent from 14 to 17, did they receive that bump during that period, or would that have been after our atypical year in 2017?
I would imagine it would come after 17.
Okay. So, then effective gross income used by taking the rents, the 2017 potential market rents, might that be low?
Say that again?
You calculated using the stabilized number of 234,687, which is the potential market rents for
That's
2017.
2017, yeah.
So, given that they may have received an RTB bump following 2017 and were valuing the current condition, might 234,687 on potential be too low?
No, that's the actual, that's the rent they were receiving at the last full year before the reference date, so that would be, that's the number, that's a real number, that's not modeled, right? The 204 is certainly low, but that's modeled, we understand that. When we use actuals, we come to a more reasonable indication of value.
And then, this is my only, you've heard me talk about the cap a lot. Just one question. So the properties used on page 3 have R&Ms per unit which range from $332 to $1,072. Is that sustainable?
I'm sorry, which page are you talking about?
On your cap rate study, page 3?
Cap rates, yeah. And which properties are you?
I'm just looking at the summary, so
Right.
this can be verified if you go check the actual performance, but the R&M per unit range from 332 to 1072 per unit. Is that typical and sustainable for a multi-family property?
Those are site-specific, that's what they were at the time, so.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Ken?
So based on renovations here, was it just flooring, windows?
My understanding is that it's decorative, there's no permits that would indicate that there was anything done to extend the useful economic life, and therefore there's no age variant. The city seems to agree with that, so that's where we're at with it. Now, when you spend that sort of money on improvements on the interior for decorating, you end up with a higher rent, so that's where the functions of one another. So if you're asking if the useful life should be changed, I don't believe so. I think that the value of the improvements is captured in the rent that we see jumps after that year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mark?
Did you calculate the average rent per suite?
No, but
Sorry, thank you. That's all I wanted to know, thank you.
Let's start with your vacancy.
yeah,
You chose 9%.
yeah.
The other years where the rent was, when they were doing the renovations,
Yeah.
seemed to be the higher ones. Should that not have been down at 4.7, like 16? I mean, you used the 16 on the expenses side too.
Yeah, I mean, in 15 it was 10, so yeah, the vacancy might be high. That might be not, that may be too high for perpetuity. I would concede that, yes.
Did you walk through the building?
I have not walked through the building, no.
You don't know how many of the suites that have been remodeled yet?
I don't know, no.
You should be getting pretty close now after 1, 2,
I would
3
imagine,
years.
I would be speculating, but I would imagine it's pretty close to done, yeah.
So they'll be starting to show that higher rent into 2018 then.
Potentially a higher vacancy rate, and higher R&M as well, so.
The vacancy rate should drop now.
Well, if the rents go higher, then that's how the market will bear that higher rent in a competitive.
The rent's going to have to go higher. I mean, isn't there rent that they can get from what they're charging now up around 267,000?
267,000? No, I got 234,000.
That's what they're showing for revenue.
Right.
That's not what they're able to get.
Oh, I see.
At their
Right.
rents.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
So they don't even have to, they don't even have to raise the rents to
That's true.
get the
Yeah,
max.
yeah, fair
They
enough.
were running a higher vacancy right now because they're renovating
Because
the
they're
suites,
renovating,
putting in
yes.
the
Yeah,
kitchens,
no, that's
putting in
true. Yeah.
the bathrooms, and they're doing all that at the same time, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so that puts you basic, if you adjusted that down, you'd be at the same NOI, so. I've got no further questions. That'll conclude the matter on this one.
Thank you.
Thanks for being brief, gentlemen. And it gets easier from here on out. Just give me 1 second. Move on to 203 Woodlawn, amount of assessed value. Okay. When you are ready, and don't forget to read the file number this time.
Okay. File number 19-3231, roll number 0705-124-1000, 203 Woodlawn Street, 2020 assessment, reference date of April 1/18, assessed value $1,347,000. Last time around, it was cut from $1,228,000 to $1,229,000, and they used a 5.5 cap rate on that one. So we have another permit. It's on Woodlawn, just north of Portage. 1961, we don't have an effective year built on it. 16 suites, 16 outdoor parking spots. Construction class C masonry bearing walls. Page 2 shows they've had a mailer in. Page 3 just shows the model breakdown. The average average monthly rent of $724.26 for the 16 out of 16 one-bedroom units. Figures, given capitalization rate around model, come up with the estimated market value, $1,347,000, our rent comparables are on page 4. We have an average monthly rent as determined by the model, $724.26. The comparables in the area support the rent as generated by the model. Cap rate evidence, page 4A, page 5, and page 7 shows what they have been submitting to us. So you'll see on page 7, net operating income on line 218, $80,541. City's at $68,683. Current maintenance is $14,693 for the 14 suites. It doesn't seem like it's too low or too high. Following year, page 10, they had net operating income of $73,572. And on page 13, they had a net operating income of $73,980, so we're less than what they're reported for the past 3 years. Page 16 just shows a picture of the exterior. I couldn't find any interior pictures, permits, and I haven't been able to inspect it, but our net operating income is lower than what they are reporting, so it doesn't look like we're overstating the assessed value. That's my evidence.
Questions?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so predominantly, this is a cap rate issue, correct?
We're pretty close, yeah, we're below 3,000 bar roughly.
Okay. Now, this building was built in 1961, and we don't see any age variant on it, correct?
That's correct.
Do you think a 5.1 cap is fairly low for a building of this vintage?
No.
Okay. And have you visited this building?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so are you aware that it faces Deer Lodge?
Deer Lodge.
Deer Lodge, the large healthcare center.
Oh, I can see that in your picture, yeah.
And would the city capture that as a positive or negative influence? Would that have any bearing on cap rate or?
Not on the cap rate.
No?
No.
Okay. Now, okay, it's fine. The city's valuation guide to income producing properties suggests that a poor suite mix may be an impediment to value. This building has 16 one-bedrooms. Do you think that's a poor suite mix?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. All right, and you mentioned that all of your inputs on page 3 are modeled?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we've dealt with the cap rate issue, that's fine. Now, alright, now, just as a point of interest, would you call this a low-rise A or a low-rise B? By the broker's report that you've included in your evidence?
I mean, they have the same cap rate range.
Nope.
I would say that it's a low rise that doesn't have any upgrades on record.
Okay, in terms of an investment grade building, 16 one-bedroom suites with a fairly substantial site-specific influence, I think it'd be fair to say it's a B. Would you not agree with that?
I mean, just glancing ahead at your vacancy rate, they're getting a lot lower than typical vacancy, market vacancy.
We're talking about cap rates, though, right?
I'm just trying to figure out like the demand. If you're talking in terms of investment, it looks like they have very strong demand for this property.
Okay. But then, in your evidence, it does suggest that the brokers would suggest this is somewhere between a 5.5 and a 6 if it were indeed an investment grade property, correct?
That's what CB already indicated.
Okay, those are my questions, thanks.
Mark, questions?
Is it a relatively low amount that's being spent on the repair and maintenance? Would that be normal for a 16 suite building?
So we're looking at I mean, he's got his summary, so.
14,389.
So we're at 16 units total. So the last 2 years, 16 and 17, it looks like they're hovering around 1,000 per suite. I mean, Altus's properties in the cap rate study range from 332, which I think is too low, to 1,072. So it would appear that it's not one way or the other out of place.
Okay. Falls within a norm?
Yeah, I mean, there's a range, of course.
And why would this one be 5.1? The previous one was 5.3. This was, is it simply the age? It's 8-year difference?
So for this one here. It's based on age, area, and size. So this one is a 1961. So between 8,000 and 14,999, it gets 5.1 in this area.
Between
So-
18, sorry, between 18,
Between 8,000 and 14,999, it gets a 5.1. And for the year, that's between 46 and 74. So it depends on the size as well as the area it's in,
okay.
and the age, of course.
So the average size of this one is a little bit bigger than the average size of the previous one that had all the master suites?
It's the total gross floor area.
Okay, but it's gonna reflect the fact that there's all the bachelor suites in the previous one, right?
Well, in terms of the gross floor area, this one is 705, and then the last one, 287. It's actually comparable number one here. It's 806, but that also includes common area as well. So that can be a bit misleading. That's not the unit size, because there's hallways, there's where people go and pick up their mail. There's other areas that aren't inclusive of units inside the buildings.
Okay,
So that could vary depending building to building.
So when you provide the gross floor area, that is exclusive of hallways, et cetera? Is that-
It's inclusive.
Inclusive
It's just
of.
the total size divided by the total
Yeah,
area.
okay, all right. That's all my questions.
Questions, Mr. Chairman?
And I've got no questions on with your presentation, Jerry.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're at 203 Woodlawn Street, and right across from the Deer Lodge Center. You can see, here we are, and then here's the complex. Okay, this building was built in 1961, and it has 16 one-bedroom suites. The city is suggesting an assessment of $1,347,000. We are suggesting a value of $1,090,000. Okay, so we're behind the High Tea Bakery, and again across from Deer Lodge Center, and the site size is 10,930 square feet. For the purposes of this report, we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5.1, and we are instead using a cap rate of 6.25. Might I just point out that when we're talking about cap rates and how they vary for age, size, and location, I'm of the opinion that a smaller building ought to carry a higher cap rate, not a lower cap rate. And we check the assessment department's evidence, the brokers would agree, largely because if you have a smaller unit or a smaller building, proportional vacancy is generally higher. If you have 10 suites and one of them is vacant, you've got 10% vacancy all of a sudden. And then there's also the issue that we call the mom and pop investors have less barriers to access to smaller properties, and that's tantamount to more risk, and we see that in the market, so I just wanted to say that. Now, we're using a 6 1/4 cap, and I should point out too that this owner, they do all of their own repairs and maintenance. So it is artificially low, so we stabilize it to bring it up to what we'll call standard market. This building is in very good condition. I visited it from the outside, it was not inside. But we've stabilized this to 1,800 per suite, which seems reasonable. Okay, now our gross market rents, I'm not gonna belabor this, we're effectively within a couple $100 of each other, so we're fine. Now, in terms of our expense ratio, when we stabilize that number, we get an expense ratio of 52.6%, so just a tick north of 50%, which is reasonable for a well-maintained building of this vintage. And we are using, oh, I'm sorry, I think I said 6.25, we're using a 6% cap. And then the resulting market value is $1,090,000, and we asked that the board adjust that. Now, I've got some photos. This is the back way. Now, there's some issues with being close to the center in terms of high traffic, street parking. It's not ideal, but again, the building is in excellent condition. And there are more photos through the back of my brief. Thank you very much.
Questions? To you, Matt.
Just looking, I mean, we're close, we're pretty close on net operating income
Yep.
on this one. Just, so you calculate it by doubling the 3-year average for the R&M, that's how you
So the
calculate
way
it?
we've got it is this is a family operation, and there's the owner and his brother, and they do all of the work. The owner doesn't claim anything for his own time, and then he pays his brother a depressed rate. So it's not indicative of what a next prudent purchaser would have to spend unless they were to do all of the work themselves. So these guys are, they're professional contractors. That's why we have to stabilize it. So 1,800 per suite seems reasonable, especially since it is in good condition. And yeah, so that's how we've had to deal with that.
And just in regards to the attractiveness of this property, given the 3-year average vacancy rate is less than 1%, would this not indicate that this would be, that's an attractive figure to a potential investor?
Well, the rents are reasonably low as well, right? So it might be a value proposition. And then there's also, sometimes we'll see, you might have somebody who has a spouse or something like that in the center, and maybe they live next door for a year. We do see that with like personal care homes. So perhaps, but I would suggest it's more of a value proposition or a specific locational issue as opposed to a larger degree of attractiveness to the market.
Okay, those are my questions then.
Ken? Any questions? Mark?
No questions.
R&M, any evidence on what they've been doing to the building?
Well, I know that they're a contractor, so I've dealt with a number of their properties. They're always they're maintaining them. They're well maintained. But in terms of, no.
You didn't get any pictures of the interior, I
do,
noticed.
no, not the interiors. No.
Have you visited the property?
I was outside, yes,
Not
absolutely.
inside?
I've been outside every single one of these properties on the docket, but not inside.
Usually when your R&M runs that high, there's some major work that's going on.
1,800 per
At
suite.
least they've been doing some change-ups. You
Um,
don't have any vacancies for any major work to be done.
Right. Well, we've stabilized that number.
I know you stabilized it
Yeah.
at 28,000.
Right, but that's 1,800 per suite, which is.
So when you're not doing any kind of small renovations, the ones that don't get caught up in
Okay.
you don't usually see that. It's usually in
Well-
that $1,000 a unit.
I would suggest that would be reasonably low, $1,000 a unit, because that would probably take us below
So that puts
50%.
you about where they're at.
Yeah, but for a building of this age, I tend to think that being a tick over 50% on our expense ratio is reasonable.
How many units are there?
16,
16, so it'd be $1,000 would be $16,000.
right, okay.
It's over what they were spending.
Right,
I've got no other questions.
thank you.
That'll conclude the matter on that one. The next property up will be 500 Vigneux Street. It's amount of assessed value, and you're up.
Okay, file number 19-4127, 500 Gagnon Bill number 07-205540-100. Assessed value $12,427,000 for the April 1st, 2018 reference dates. Last time, it was reduced from $11,504,000 to $10,285,000, based on our recommendation using a 5 1/4 cap rate. It's an apartment where Allard meets Gagnon, out by the perimeter. 1979, no effective year built on it. 96 suites, 116 outdoor parking spots. Construction class D, water, steel frame walls. Page 2, they've been having their mailers in. Page 3 shows the breakdown of the property. So with an average monthly rent of $1,035.42 for the 96 suites, 36 of which are 1 bedroom, 60 of which are 2 bedroom. Model parameters and a model 5% cap rate, estimated market value $12,427,000. We've got our rent comparables on page 4, out in that direction. They vary in effective year built. Comparable 1 is 10 years older. Its rent is $1,007. Comparables 2 to 4 are newer, and their rents are higher, which is in line with being in a newer building. Capitalization rate evidence, page 4A, page 5. We have our mailer as submitted to the department on page 7, 8, and 9, 2017, and then on page 10, we have our 2016 mailer, and on page 11, we have our 2015 mailer. So just glancing ahead on this one, we're relatively close in terms of net operating income. I think we're about 12,000 off. Our expenses are higher, but our rent is also higher too. Predominantly, the value comes down to vacancy on this one in terms of a 4 versus a model 2.6 vacancy rate. Page 12 shows some pictures of the interior of the property, taken from an old brief. And then I've got an aerial from our system showing the 4 buildings there. At least from this aerial shot, looks like they're in good condition. So we're pretty close in terms of net operating income. Cap rate's similar to what they went with in 2018. I didn't make a change on this one. Thank you.
Jared?
Yeah. Okay, sorry, now in the last cycle, you said that there was a recommendation on this property?
Yeah,
And it was, what were those figures here?
it went from 11,504,000 to 10,285,000.
Okay. But now we're suggesting that this property is increased in value by 21%.
I'll take yes or word on
Okay. Now, these are somewhat atypical. These are what we would call garden villa apartments. Is that accurate?
that. I would go with that description, yeah.
Right. So they're low density, generally,
Yep,
and there's 4 buildings.
correct.
Okay. And they're Class D construction, likely stick frame.
Yes.
Okay, and 0 basement, so that means that all storage would have to be in-suite or off-site. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and do you think that from the perspective of the market, having 4 distinct buildings, presumably they would all have their own systems, they'd have their own HVACs, water tanks and heaters and boilers, that would be tantamount to more risk or less risk in the eyes of an expert in purchaser?
I guess it would have to, it would depend on the condition of the mechanicals that are in place.
But having 4 sets of mechanicals versus 1 would probably be, would probably give you a sense of pause as an investor as opposed to a sense of confidence, would it not?
I might,
Okay, that's fine. Now, in your cap rate study, how many buildings with multiple, or how many properties with multiple buildings were entered into this cap rate study?
I don't think,
Okay. Okay, but we didn't adjust for that, the model doesn't adjust for that, is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay, rent comps, page 4. Now, you're aware that comps 2 and 3 are both high rises, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and, okay, that's fine. And then the other thing that was interesting to me is, number 3 is Glendale Court, are you aware of that?
I don't know the name of that building.
Okay, that's the Lions Tower, it's a life lease. That's a life lease building, so that would not be appropriate to use for a project study, right? Okay, it's fine, moving on. Okay. That's pretty much it, we've got the same marketing photos here, you can see the buildings, 4 buildings. Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Mark?
So the 4 buildings are, given Winnipeg stock, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of, neither here nor there for age, not new, not old. They're reasonably maintained, look nice, fairly attractive. Location-wise though, they are in the lee of what I would guess, maybe you can tell me, would be one of the most traveled interchanges in the city, noise, trucks, that sort of thing. Would that have an impact on the desirability of these suites in the market?
So yeah, it's out by the west perimeter, and the west perimeter does go a long way away from the center of the city. But it is one way to get around the city if you're going to work on another side of the city faster. That could be positive, but it is near the Trans-Canada Highway or perimeter, so I haven't been to it personally. I can't comment on whether there's a relevant level of noise.
So this, in your system, is it marked as
We don't
high
have
traffic as a?
No.
No. Okay. That's my only question.
Ken?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
And I've got none until we hear Jared's report.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so 500 Gagnon Street, built in 1979, we've got 3 stories, again, there's no basement, 36 one-bedroom units, 62 bedroom units for a total of 96 units. The city is suggesting a realty assessment for the 2020 cycle of $12,427,000. We are requesting that that be amended to $10,158,000. Okay, now again, we've got 4 buildings here, and we're located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Gagnon Street and Oxbow Bend Road in the Glendale area. We're out by the perimeter, to be certain. Built in 1979, presently being used as a multifamily residential building. And the total gross floor area is approximately 88,255 square feet. The site size is 2.4 acres. We've got a map here to show you. Here's the Trans-Canada Highway, and here we are. So we are very close to that intersection. Now, for the purposes of this report, we're disputing the assessor's capitalization rate of 5%, and we are instead using a rate of 6% based on our cap study. So, with all those points taken into consideration, we're looking at a value of $10,158,000. Now, follow me to my workup. Again, we've taken 3 years of real financials, and we've stabilized them into the stabilized column as to what we're going to call a most typical year. This is the market view of how we ought to how we ought to value these properties. Now, we start off from with a bit of a gap, once we factor in discounts and vacancy. It seems that the discounts here are fairly high, but so I suppose the potential gross rents, the city and I are not terribly far off, but once we factor in discounts taken from the statements, we see that there's a bit of a gap that's beginning to form. We also see that there's some vacancy. The city is suggesting a 2.6% vacancy. We are saying that 4% is more reasonable to capitalize into perpetuity. I would suggest, as it has rightly been pointed out, that the area is not exactly the most desirable in terms of proximity to the city and the main amenities in the city center. So that may be why the vacancy is slightly higher than average, but we're not worlds apart. The city's using a model 2.6, we're saying that 4% is reasonable to capitalize into perpetuity again. Okay, so the effective gross income that we come to is $1,082,473. The city is at $1,161,791. And after we factor in our expenses, we're actually lower than the city on our expense ratio at 43.7%. The city's using 46.5. So at the end of the day, we come to an NOI of 609,488. The city's at 621,326. So the material issue here becomes one of cap rate. The city's using 5%. We are suggesting that 6% is more representative of the market view for this property. Again, we ask that the 2020 indicated market value be adjusted to $10,158,000. I've got some photos here in my appendices. You can see, again, for the subject, this busy intersection, Trans-Canada Highway. About 4 buildings here, and they are sort of a hybrid between garden style and villa style apartments with 4 buildings built in the late 70s, low density, and stick frame construction. And the interiors have been redone. We've got the same marking photos in our briefs, I believe. And that would be, I believe that would appear to, that would be captured in the rent. So, that's my presentation. Thank you.
Matthew?
Yeah, so this was built in '79.
Yeah.
As per your, it's got a 6 cap. If it was built in 1980, it would got a 5 3/4 cap.
Well, yeah, no, there's always going to be these breaks in our brackets. We have them too. I would suggest that this building ought to carry the 6% cap. It has a number of, we do a site-specific analysis. So if we say, okay, we're going to start from a 6%, ought we to adjust this downwards or upwards based on some of the factors that are at play here? Now, personally, if the cap rate were higher, that wouldn't surprise me. The location is not desirable. When we look at cap rates, we have to think about the 3 parts of cap rates: the durability of the income stream going forward, which is anticipation, and then also the investment options that would be substituted that we can look at as well. So, with all those points taken into consideration, I don't know that I would feel very confident going forward with all the new apartment stock that's coming in. I would think that the expenses would be rising. I would think that there's a lot more grounds to maintain when it comes to these kind of low-density developments. And I would suggest that the reason why we don't necessarily see new garden, villa, and garden apartments is because they're sort of a vestige of a different time. They're a very 1970s type of construction. So, yeah, if it were 1980 and we're a different asset, perhaps we would start to look at it from a 5.75. But with everything taken into consideration with this property, I think a 6% is reasonable.
And just your R&M per unit, you use 1204. Would you agree that's typical for a property of this age?
I think that's a little low. I think it's actually really low for a property of this age and for a property of that's stick frame construction built in this style. I think that's pretty low, actually.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Mark?
So you said that you went with the 4.0 cap rate in part because there
What?
may be.
No,
You mean the rent? I mean, you mean the vacancy?
Yeah.
Sorry, what did I say? Sorry.
He would never go with.
No, I don't think I'd go with the cap at 4, no. I might not even. The vacancy, you said that might be due to its proximity to the interchange
Possibly,
there,
yeah.
but we don't really
The other
know
thing we're
about.
seeing too is that there's discounts in here, there's a high number of discounts. So we're having to induce people to, something that I'm seeing more often is if you sign a year-long lease, you get some sort of discount on your rent or whatever. So it looks like there's a value proposition here. So now the city doesn't necessarily capture discounts as vacancy.
Okay.
It's probably the same thing in the.
The vacancies that you list here, though, at 2015, 13.3%.
Yeah.
Then 4.3, 4.3.
Yeah,
What was the 13.3 attributable to?
I'm not sure, that may be when they did the renos, it appears that they've done renos in there, I would imagine that's what it would be.
Okay.
But I don't think that this building is not going to have some sort of vacancy issue going forward. That, based on its location alone, I think that it's gonna be harder to lease without some sort of inducement. And then again, if you look at the number of discounts there, 4% seems reasonable.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Ken?
I think you referenced this as, did I hear you correctly, Garden Market?
Garden Villas.
Villas,
Yeah.
Garden Villas, I apologize.
Yeah.
Sorry, Garden
Yeah.
Villas. And in your discussion, you mentioned that there's newer types of apartments that are replacing these Garden Villas.
Yeah, well so I've done a number of garden style apartments.
Okay,
They don't tend to build them anymore because they're not intensive in terms of their land use. You've got 4 different buildings, you've got large parking lots, garden apartments generally tend to have swimming pools. So they have high expenses, but they don't generate higher than average rents. So these types of apartments were generally built in the 1970s, and we tend to build one building and build it up now as opposed to building multiple buildings. We don't necessarily want to have 4 building envelopes, 4 roofs, 4 HVAC systems, 4 boilers. We don't want all of that incurred extra risk. So people don't tend to build these anymore for the most part.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I've got no questions. Let's move on to the next property. And then we're gonna take a 5-minute after that. We're gonna move to 191 Greenway Crescent, and it's come out with assessed value as well. Matthew, when you are ready.
Okay. File number 19-4128, 07, roll number 07432, 661, 000, 191 Greenway Crescent West, assessed value $7,173,000. It's an apartment, 1973, we don't have any effective year built on it. It's down Portage past Sturgeon, tucked in behind, well, tucked back off Portage beside Superstar. The best indication of that is actually the applicant's brief on his page 3, to get an idea of the location of the property. 1973, 69 suites, 41 upper apartments, construction class C masonry bearing walls. Able to review this property ahead of time. Last time around, it was reduced from $6,086,000 to $5,686,000. And they used a 5 3/4 cap rate. So this time we're quite a lot higher. We're at $7,173,000. I reviewed the applicant's submission, and also took into consideration what sort of increase from 18 we're getting, including from the model. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm fine with the applicant's net operating income, which is $354,930. It looks like our expense ratio does need to be adjusted a bit, but I'm not adjusting the cap on that. So the resulting recommendation using the model 5.3 cap is to reduce it to rounded $6,697,000.
You okay with that?
Sorry, what was the cap rate that you're using?
He's using his 5.3,
Oh, no.
On your
That's
number.
right, I was received.
so it's all cap rate now.
That's the cap rate issue.
Okay.
So it's essentially a cap rate issue. To get an idea, this is probably just what the interior looks like, because we are now agreeing on net operating income. The pictures can be found, my pictures that I have split here are found on page 12 to the end of the brief. So, construction class C, you can see some exterior pictures and see some interior pictures. It looks like they have been keeping up with the place, but nothing like granites or anything substantial in terms of renovations to it. So basic but maintained. I think the stabilization is reasonable, and we're a bit high, especially given what it was in 18, so that's why I felt it necessary to rack it down to the 354, 930 on the net operating income. We've talked about cap already, so I'm not gonna really play that. Thank you.
Good, on to you.
I do
Talk-
appreciate
talk
that
on your cap.
recommendation. Thank you very much. But we're doing questions, sir? So-
Yep, questions.
Okay. Just quickly, labor this, we are looking at cap rate. Now, locationally, would you say this is a good location, inferior location?
I think it's a good location.
Okay. All right, and you've got the actual year built of 73, effective year built of 73,
Yeah, we haven't gone in, we haven't been inside the place now.
and 3 stories. Now, you've got 69 suites, no basement area. Is that typical?
It's always a case-by-case basis.
Now, cap rates, there's not really much to discuss here, but I guess we can say that 333 Ward is a brand-new building at South St. Patel. It's got all sorts of amenities, a fitness room, it's got covered parking. So just by comparison, you're suggesting a 5.3 cap on our building from the early 1970s, but a brand-new build in South St. Patel, I would say objectively a better location. It has a 5 cap. Is that not some of the sorts with you?
We have a higher cap rate on this one.
Okay,
Depends on people, where people wanna live.
Okay. And the brokers would suggest that a 6% cap rate is probably more appropriate based on your evidence, is that correct?
That's they've got ranges, yeah.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Mark?
Sorry, I'm looking at the agent's brief right now. You had no problem with the 2.6 vacancy there, right, for this building?
No, that's market.
Okay, yeah, all right, that's my only question.
Kent?
You mentioned on the last assessment, there was reduction. What was the actual assessment? What was the
Oh, that was
reduction?
prior to the reduction? So it was reduced from 6,086,000
$6,086,000,
to 5,686,000.
686. Was a change in the cap rate at the time,
But they used a 5 3/4 cap rate.
3/4. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On with your
Thank
presentation.
you. Okay, 191 Greenway, again, this is a cap rate issue for the most part. So we have the building built in 1973 with no substantial upgrades that would indicate that its effective useful life has been extended. We've got no basement, we've got a regularly shaped parcel. And so again, effectively, this is an issue where the assessor's using 5.3% this cycle, 5.75% last cycle, and we continue to use a 6% cap based on the vintage of this building. So I will suggest, based on that 6% cap, that a value of $5,916,000 rounded is appropriate, and that does make sense when we look at the previous assessment of 5.6 million. So again, not to belabor things, but this is a cap rate issue, and 6% is more appropriate, so we are asking for 5,916,000 for this assessment cycle. Thank you.
Questions on the cap? You're
No
good?
questions, thank you.
Kent, questions on the cap?
No questions.
Then Mark?
No questions.
We're good. Thank you very much. That concludes that matter. We're getting better. Taking 5 minutes, if you don't mind. If you don't mind, we're gonna take 5 minutes anyway. tell you after. We'll call the meeting back. First property, the property up next is going to be, I do have to put them on. 529 Country Club Boulevard, and you're going after liability of taxation, amount of assessed value and classification, or just classification and value?
No, classification and liability. So
And liability as well? Okay, so you're
Yes.
gonna go first then?
Sure. And I have the materials for you.
Yeah.
This will carry forward to both files that we're with this issue.
Is that new evidence?
Hmm?
Is that new evidence being added up?
It looks like it.
Um,
You wanna show it to,
Well, I mean, that's
Matt?
a big stack of paper for
I
me
know.
to review on the day. I can't do that right now.
Right.
see, that's what I need.
Right, okay, that's fair.
It's very hard for you to present it, and
Well, maybe I can speak to it and then.
you're gonna just speak to it?
Sure.
Okay, put it
Okay.
back, we're not gonna, no, you're right. It's new evidence. Speak to it.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so, may I begin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're at 529 Country Club Boulevard. Now, this is a.
You're gonna have to read the file number and the roll
Oh,
number on,
sure.
please.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, file number 193651, and this is roll number 07-565-615-100. And the property is located at 529 Country Club Boulevard, and the owner is the Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corporation. Now, this is a seniors home. It's a subsidized seniors home, built in 1976. We have 82 studio apartments, which are 420 square feet, and 24 one-bedroom apartments, which are 627 square feet. Okay, and we have one two-bedroom suite as well. The city is suggesting a value of $7,270,000, and we are suggesting $5,592,000. And we're also suggesting that the class code ought to be changed from 20 to 40S, based on the fact that this is a seniors home that is for subsidized social housing.
Do you have any questions on that, or is that factual, that it's 40S on seniors homes? Do we have to go through the whole argument?
This
or-
is, this one is class 20G grantable because it's a Crown Corporation. They're exempt from taxes, they pay grants in lieu of.
Finish your side,
Thank you. Yeah, and 40S will give us the
school tax.
school tax exemption. Okay, so now, okay, to my workup, we effectively, because these are subsidized rents, we use the market rent that the city has put forward, but we made an adjustment to the cap rate. So our cap rate on an asset such as this would generally be 6%, but based on the fact that this is a, what we'll call a limited dividend property, it has achieved no economic profit since it started. And the suites, again, you can see, we've got 420 square foot suites for the, what we're calling bachelors or studios, and then what we're calling one bedrooms are 627 square feet, and then as is typical in senior social housing, we have one two-bedroom suite that's used by the caretaker. So the exercise today is to look at this asset and to imagine how it may perform on the free and open market. I'm suggesting that a cap rate adjustment ought to be included here to recognize the fact that there's no economic profit, small suite sizes, and also that for the balance of its lifetime, this asset has been used for seniors housing. It was built for that purpose, so we find that these assets are generally built to what we'll call a utilitarian standard. So it's not typical of an asset that's performing in the free and open market. So if all of those points is considered, we ask that this is properly recognized as a subsidized seniors home. So the class change will be 40S, and that the assessment go from $7,270,000 to $5,592,000 based on an adjustment to the cap rate. Now you can see I've got some photos here. This is sort of these facades are typical of seniors homes, smaller windows. That is generally done as a protective measure when people are older, we don't have balconies, we have small control windows. There's no HVAC, air conditioning, I should say, in the building. You can see the small in-suite air conditioners. So again, this is not a building that was meant to perform on the free and open market. It was built as a senior's home. It's currently sponsored managed by the Botany Group, who are also this is what they do. They're part of the Mennonite Church, and their business is to run these assets. So again, we ask that those changes be considered for this assessment cycle. Thank you.
Questions? Matthew?
In your brief, is there a license for an elderly?
No, Manitoba Housing doesn't grant licenses to themselves. So it's sponsor managed.
So there's no license?
No, Manitoba Housing, because they're a Crown corporation, they don't issue licenses to themselves. This is certainly a 55-plus seniors home, and it's subsidized.
Where does it say 55 plus in your brief?
Okay, go to section on Bethania. Okay, well, it doesn't say, it says 529 Country Club Boulevard is a seniors community managed by the Bethany Group on behalf of Manitoba Housing and Family Services. And it's rent geared to income, so that's all there. And then you have the suite sizes as well as the subsidized rent.
So it doesn't say 55 plus anywhere.
Well, it says it's a seniors community, so.
Okay. So the people in there you're saying are 55 and above?
Yes, seniors community.
Are you aware that as per the Elderly and Infirm Persons Housing Act, elderly persons is defined as a single person of 65 or more years of age?
Yes, I am. And we've done a fair bit of work on this. The license to operate an elderly persons facility defines an elderly person as an unmarried person of 55 or more years of age whose annual income, including assistance under the Old Age Security Act, does not exceed an amount equal to 5 times the annual rental. So what's interesting too is in 2011, there was a program called Stat 55 Plus. And what that does is it exempts any individual renter from school tax. So there is a change where the EIPH says 65, but the policy has been 55 for a number of years. The other issue is we've got a number of seniors homes in the city of Winnipeg, and they're all 55 plus. There are none that are 65 plus, and some are exempt, some aren't. So there's an equity issue here.
So just to confirm that as it's written in the Elderly and Infirm Persons Act, it says 65, not 55.
It says that in the act, but the policy by Manitoba Housing's own application is 55 plus. And I was on the phone with Asian Opportunity as early as this morning, as recently as this morning, and that's part of what I brought here today, but there's not a single subsidized seniors resource that is not 55 plus.
Okay. Is there, are you aware that there is a size limitation in terms of different suites
For buildings built after 1996, yes.
in regards to being eligible for this?
Yeah, for buildings built after 1996, this building would not fall under that purview. And these are small suites. These are 600, 420 square feet suites, so they meet that criteria, but it's also, that criteria has to do with buildings built after 1996.
Is Manitoba Housing a Crown corporation?
Yeah,
As such, are they not fully exempt from taxes already?
they are not exempt from school taxes. They're paying a grant in lieu, right?
And then for value, we're the same other than cap rate on this
Yes.
one. So, have you inspected this property?
I've not been inside it, I've been outside.
you know what condition the property's in on the inside?
No, but I would imagine that it's, it would not meet private market standards, that's what I'll suggest.
So just to confirm, there's no license for this property. Has Manitoba Housing applied to the city of Winnipeg providing a license for this?
I'm not sure. I can only speak to the matters we're dealing with today.
And for value on this one, did you add a premium to this one?
Did,
On the cap rate?
It's our policy to add a 50 basis point adjustment for social housing, particularly for buildings that were built for the purpose of social housing. They're not built to compete, they're built as a shelter resource. So it's very difficult to look at these assets and say, well, how would this perform on the free and open market? But I would suggest to you that a next prudent purchaser would be given a sense of alarm when faced with trying to rent 420 square foot units.
Have they redone the exterior of this property recently?
I saw the outside, not that I can tell. It doesn't appear so.
And so the premium, let me just see here. Yeah. And the reasons for social housing, okay.
Yeah.
Those are my questions, thanks.
Mark? So you applied for value, class, and liability, but why wasn't your class and liability material exchanged at the same time as the value information?
I'm sorry, why wasn't my,
Why wasn't your material about class and
Oh.
liability exchanged at the same time? Why is it only coming today?
I guess I suppose I wasn't, I didn't have my research wasn't completed at that point. It's been a fairly substantial undertaking, so.
I'm not familiar with the 40S property seniors housing designated under ENIPH.
Yeah.
That doesn't have a license. You're sure that Lithuania doesn't have a license? Nobody has a license
Well, no,
for it?
my understanding is that if it's owned by Manitoba Housing, then they operate under what's called a sponsor management agreement. So, and we have a fellow in our office who used to work for Manitoba Housing, and he said that the Manitoba Housing as a Crown Corporation doesn't grant themselves licenses. So, now in terms of Bethania, I worked on Arlington House as well, and that was applied for administratively, and it was changed, and it's virtually identical to this, except for they are now the owner, whereas Manitoba Housing was the owner at one point. So that property had changed hands, and then it was, and again, it's 55 plus, it's virtually identical in terms of suite mix, the subsidy model, and we did have that changed. So,
Did you say that the size limitation came in 1996?
that's my understanding of the act, that it's buildings built after 1996 for purposes of social housing have to have suites that are smaller than the average, and that's typical of subsidized housing, particularly for seniors subsidized housing. Now, this is built in the 70s, so that point would not apply.
And you're saying it does not apply to any building prior to 1996?
I'm not sure about that. I know that there is a size limitation. I think the idea is that it's typical for senior social housing for the suites to be very small compared to what we typically see in the apartment universe. Now I didn't go too far into that because I can see that our suites are 420 and 620 square feet, so it's certainly within the parameters.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Ken?
I don't have any questions, Mr. Chair.
Good. Let's move on to your presentation, Matthew.
Okay. So 529 Country Club, we agree on the net operating income.
Yep.
And so it's cap rate. We modeled 5%. So I won't, you've heard cap rate arguments already. I'll just direct you to, just in regards to the condition of the property. If you go on page 11, you'll see very small permit, just adding a ladder, this doesn't do anything. Page 12, interior and exterior alterations. New supports for a new HRV and condensing unit, electrical work, $221,000. That was 2015. 2009, $256,000. Replace flooring, electrical fixtures, and paint all surfaces in the common areas, all flooring of the building. Page 14, this is a while ago, 20 years ago. Looks like they did the exterior, declare construction value, $1,010,000. So, the picture is on page 15, that's why I asked about the exterior. Looks like it's in good condition. It's often said that there's no reserve fund for this property and there should be a premium for the cap applied to it. But the money is there to do the major expenditures when need be. So in regards to the classification, Manitoba Housing is a Crown corporation. As described on page 16 from their website, they're exempt from taxes. They pay grants in lieu of. It's been stated here by the applicant that there should be a school tax exemption based on it being seniors housing. However, a license hasn't either been applied for nor produced today or to the city. If you go to page 19, you'll see that this is an excerpt from the Elderly and Infirm Persons Housing Act. Single person of 65 or more years of age whose annual income including assistance under old age security does not exceed the amount, so on and so
I'm sorry,
forth.
can you read that again?
A single person of 65 or more years of age whose annual income including assistance under the Old Age Security Act does not exceed an amount equal to 5 times the annual rental for the accommodation that they occupy. It's 65. It's funny because the application on page 10 says 55, so it looks like there's an issue with the application being different than what the law says. Also, this
On page what?
on
Yeah,
page
you
20.
said?
Sorry, page 20.
You said you were,
I was on 19, reading an excerpt from the
and then
elderly.
you went back to what page?
I went forward to page 20,
Page 20. Yeah.
and then it indicates on their application
Yeah. The 50.
certifying 55, but,
Yep.
I mean, the loss is 65. So that seems to be a difference there. And then I go to the back side, and it says, in the middle section, the regulations to an elderly person, infirm persons housing act, effective November 15, 1997, states that no license shall be issued under section 27 of the act in respect to an elderly person's housing unit that exceeds the following floor areas measured from the center line of the party walls and the outer side of the exterior and corner walls, enclosing the unit but not including any bulk storage room. So that regulation came into effect in 1997. Then we have the sizes as per the bedroom counts. So for one bedroom, the limit's 585 square feet. These ones are 627 square feet. Below that, the sentence says, the paragraph says, section 27.2 of the ENIPH Act permits that no projects licensed prior to November 15th, 1997, effective date of the above mentioned regulation will continue to qualify for licensing, provided that all eligibility criteria continues to be met. So this place didn't have, it's a matter of not when it was built, it's a matter of when it was licensed. That's how I'm reading it here. I don't see the word built. So it didn't have a license prior to November of 1997, so it's too big. it hasn't been proven that the people in there fit the age requirements and there's no license. That's my evidence there.
Questions?
Yes. Okay, sorry, are you suggesting this isn't a subsidized seniors housing complex?
No?
It is, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, are you suggesting that there are any seniors homes in the city of Winnipeg that are not 55 plus?
Seniors homes?
Yeah. Subsidized seniors homes. Every public subsidized seniors home is 55 plus, not 65 plus, is that correct?
Well, the law says on page 1965,
Okay, but I'm asking if you're aware that every seniors home that is subsidized in the city of Winnipeg is 55 plus.
well, for seniors, it would have to be 65.
Okay, that's not correct. All right, that's fine. Now, there are a number of subsidized seniors homes, and some of them are exempted, and some are not. Is that correct?
Are we talking about those, or are we talking about 529 Country Club?
Well, I'm making the equity argument because what I'm saying, you're saying that this is a seniors home. We agree that it's subsidized, but it ought not to be exempted when other completely comparable properties are exempted. And the principle of equity would state that they all ought to be treated the same way.
Are those in your evidence somewhere?
No, I'm asking you a question. I'm asking you a question based on your presentation.
There's no license, they're not of age, and the suite sizes do not fit the criteria.
And does Manitoba Housing issue licenses to themselves?
I don't work for Manitoba Housing.
Okay. Now, you've mentioned here that the Act, the EIPH, states 65 years, but you have also mentioned that from Manitoba Housing, the application quite clearly says the definition of elderly and infirm person, elderly means an unmarried person of 55 or more years of age. So there was some policy change somewhere, we can agree on that, correct?
Yeah, but is that what the law says?
Well, there's an issue there. Now, we've also, your department reviewed Arlington House at 880, what's the address, 880 Arlington Street, and upon review, it is the same thing, same suite size. It caters to 55 plus, managed by Bethania, and that was changed as well.
Is that a question? Like,
Yeah,
I don't see
I'm asking if
that,
you're aware of that.
I don't see that in your brief.
He's getting a verbal.
I'm
Okay.
presenting to you verbally, well, maybe you didn't work on that file, but I know that's one that I worked on, and that was changed upon review. So would it not seem equitable then, if it's the same, we've got Bethania managing one building, and in one case they're exempted and in one they're not? That seems inequitable to me. Does that not seem inequitable to you?
I don't have any of that information around.
Okay, that's fine. Now, okay, so that's my piece on the classification. Now, let's talk about value. The first thing I'm noticing, you mentioned a number of these permits. One thing that caught my eye was it said the previous tenant used as apartments, and then it says rooming house. So were these changed to a rooming house from an apartment block? Is that what you're suggesting?
I don't know why that's there. It's not a rooming house.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about, we've got a building built in 1976 and effective year of 76, so those permits were taken out, but they didn't trigger any sort of age variant, is that correct?
Yeah, we don't have an age grant.
Okay. And it's a high rise with 13 stories? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and it's got 82 bachelors and 24 one-bedrooms, and suites again are extremely small. Now, do you think does the city capture that irregular suite size somewhere in its calculation of value?
That would be in regards to the rent that's assigned to it.
That would be captured in rent. Now, if I'm a next prudent, self-motivated potential investor, would I not look at this suite mix and say, I will have to effectively gut this whole building in order to reposition it on the market? Is that not how somebody would probably approach this, as opposed to trying to rent out 400 square foot suites?
I don't know what the inside looks like in terms of it needing to be gutted or not.
Just in terms of the size?
Oh, the size of the suites in the suite
Presumably,
next?
you'd have to redemise that entire space, would you not?
I've never purchased an apartment and redemised it.
Okay. Have you ever been in a 400 square foot apartment?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
All right, those are my questions, thanks.
Mark,
No questions.
Ken,
No questions, Mr. Chair?
on with your presentation.
I already went.
No, that's right, you did it. We reversed. I'm sorry.
Unless you have a question.
No, I do have one question, actually. Liability and taxation is
What, 20G?
20G. Then classification is the 40, is where.
Oh, sorry, classification is 20, liability is G,
Liability is G,
yes.
yeah. So the 20G, the 40S that he's asking for would end up under liability.
That's school, I think he wants a school tax exemption.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's under classification then.
Well, 40 is the class.
It would,
40 is the
it
class,
would
S
change.
is the,
Liability.
yeah, so it'd be 40 in the S, okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. That's the wrong paper. Number 6. Number 6 is amount of assessed value, and it's 530 Tilhurst Street. When you are ready, Matthew.
Okay. File number 19-3199, roll number 120-800-19100, 530 Tilhurst Street. Assessed value $2,513,000. 1959, no effective year, built on it, 30 suites, 12 outdoor parking spots, construction class C, masonry bearing walls. Located south of Portage. So go to page 2. You'll see that they've been good handing in their mailers. We have our income value summary. For the purposes of going quick, we're pretty close in terms of the net operating income. We're actually about $3,500 less than what the applicant has calculated, so I'm not going to dwell on the financials of the property. You can see pictures of the property on page 16. That's the outside of it. Then we've got some interior pictures on the inside. Looks basic, almost one could say dated, but well maintained, all the same. So we've gone over cap today and in previous hearings this cycle. We're at 5.3 on this as per age, area, and size. No effective age has been applied to it, and nor should there be based on pictures provided at the end of the brief. That's my evidence, thank you.
Question, Matthew.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, have you visited this site?
No, I'm not.
No, okay, did you look at a photo of the site?
I looked at the photos at the end, I provided some photos.
Okay, so you're not aware that this building faces onto a massive cemetery?
I saw that in your brief when you saw
Okay.
that.
What are you thinking across the street?
It's right across the street, one of your front door and you're in the cemetery. Okay, do you think that has that been captured anywhere in this calculation? That site influence?
No, I think that's more of a positive thing.
Do you think living next to a cemetery is a positive?
Yeah, there's less traffic.
There's less traffic. Okay, there's also an active church that has services on Sundays in that cemetery, correct?
Are we talking about, okay. Is there?
Yes. do you think it's the market view that adjacency to a cemetery is a positive? Or is that your view?
I think it's person to person. I would,
Okay.
as opposed to living across from another building, I would rather live across from a cemetery.
Okay, your personal thoughts aside, the market view of cemetery adjacency, do you think it's positive or negative?
I don't think it's proven either way.
Okay, when the city puts a site influence down on a property for something like a commercial adjacency or cemetery adjacency, is that indicative of a positive or negative when they put that on a property assessment detail sheet?
I don't think it does anything, actually. I just think it's on the record.
That's interesting. All right, so we've got a building built in 1959 and it's still no age variant, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you've got 30 suites here. Now, you said that age, size, and location are the main drivers of cap rate.
Yes.
So, and you're suggesting that a smaller building ought to have a lower cap rate. Is that correct?
Yeah, when I'm looking at the brackets, yeah.
Okay. But the brokers don't agree with you, do they? They would say that the inverse is correct. Smaller building.
I guess you're-
Higher cap rate. It's in your
Oh, sorry,
evidence.
I guess you're referring to
Broker stays. even
page
with
5?
evidence,
Is
yeah.
that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm talking about your evidence that you've submitted here. Now, you've said that the smaller buildings should have a lower cap rate, but it's pretty clear that the brokers are not in agreement with you.
I mean, there's quite a few gaps. They're missing as much data as they have on those charts.
They're saying that a high-rise would have a 5% cap and a low-rise would be 5 3/4. Okay, now, moving on, we've got a sale here. Any details of that sale?
That's an old sale, I didn't put any weight on it.
Okay. All right, and now again, for 516 Tilehurst, there's 3 buildings in a row here on the cemetery. 516 we're gonna look at next, I believe. Now, in this rent comp table, you say that the average monthly rent is 812, but in your brief it's 765. So why are those not the same?
Are you talking about 516?
I'm talking about 516, yeah.
Oh, I haven't looked at that one yet.
Okay. So we've got 516 and 530, there's 3 buildings in a row, these are separated by 1 building. But what's interesting is in our brief, or your brief, you've got 765 as the average, but here it's 812. I'm just wondering why that would be different from brief to brief. That seems odd for the same property.
So are you talking about the rent that the model is assigning?
I don't know.
Are we skipping ahead here?
No, I'm just asking you why it would not be the same from,
Well, we don't take the actuals, we look at what the market is, and, so they're reporting higher rents than the model is assigning it.
okay. All right, it's fine. Got the photos, you said that the interiors, this is fairly dated, do you agree?
Yeah, there's no justification for an effective age on it.
Okay. All right, those are my questions, thanks.
Mark?
No, I don't have any questions.
Ken?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, on with your presentation. Jared?
Okay, thank you very much. We're at 530 Tilhurst. And again, built in 1959, 6 bachelor units, 21 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms. The city is suggesting a value of $2,513,000. We are suggesting a value of $2,104,000 is more appropriate. So again, we've got a 3.5-story structure built in 1959. It's presently being used as a multiple family residential building, and the site size is 12,180 square feet. And it should be negatively impacted by its direct adjacency to the St. James Cemetery. And hopefully the city has captured this influence in their modeling. If you can see that now, you can see this is the cemetery. And here's our subject. Okay. So for the purpose of this report, we are disputing the assessor cap rate of 5.3%. And we have instead used 6.5%. Now it's 6.25 plus I've adjusted it upwards for the cemetery adjacency. I think the market views that is a negative, and that's not changing. That cemetery will be there for all time, presumably. So
So I've adjusted that with the 6.5 cap. Now, we end up with a higher potential gross market rent than the city, so that's fine. And our expense ratio is 51.2%, again, a tick over 50% for a building of this vintage seems reasonable. Our R&M is 1,795 per suite, also seems reasonable. So we end up with an NOI that's fairly close to the cities. We're at 136,775. They're at 133,206. So the material difference here is a cap rate of 6.5 versus a 5.3 cap. So when capitalizing our actual NOI, we come to a value of $2,104,000, and we do ask that value be amended for this cycle to $2,104,000. So here's our subject, just to give you a sense of it, and you're walking across the street near the cemetery. Suggest to you that it's a strong locational disadvantage that ought to be captured, so we put it in the cap rate. That's my presentation, thank you.
Questions from you, Matthew?
So you added a 0.25 premium to this property?
That's correct.
Because of the cemetery.
Yeah, I think that being next to a cemetery in the eyes of the market in general would be a negative. And because it's a cemetery, it's always going to be a cemetery. It's not a commercial adjacency that may be redeveloped into something more desirable. So as long as that building is a apartment block, it will have a cemetery adjacency.
Is there any, like, you mentioned that the market sees it that way. Did you get that from a report or anything, or is it kind of like we just have a different opinion of what a cemetery?
No, I think when we look at, for example, let's look at home sales. Do you think home sales are at a premium or at a supremely depressed rate when they're adjacent to a cemetery?
I don't have any information that
Okay,
would show any difference.
The city does apply a negative influence for cemetery adjacency.
Well, I know that it's noted. I can't confirm that it's a negative influence.
Well, if it was benign, it wouldn't be noted.
Well, if it became, just because we note something doesn't mean that it's a negative or a positive. We keep track of it, so if.
We do see an upward adjustment.
Hang on, sir, I'm not done, please do not interrupt.
Let him have his question here. Go for it.
So, just because it's recorded, we have it recorded so that if it is shown that it is a negative influence, then that's something that would be applied. But we keep track of it, but just because we keep track of it doesn't mean that it's positive or negative. We are keeping track of it.
Okay. So when we have a property that's on a retention pond, or a property that's on a park, it's adjusted upwards because that's seen as a value positive. Is that not correct?
Yep.
Okay, so all those property influences, external corners, internal corners, high traffic, bus routes, those are all captured somewhere in your model, are they not?
Yes.
Okay, so then presumably a cemetery adjacency is not benign, it is captured, it ought to be captured somewhere, ought it not to be?
Well, I mean,
Are you?
are you?
I don't know.
I thought he was questioning you.
Okay.
I think we're
Well,
mixing it
I
up.
don't
I'm
know
trying to
question
respond.
anymore.
Huh?
I'm trying to
You were
respond to the
asking him
question.
questions.
Okay, I'm trying to respond to the,
Respond to his questions, you don't have
Okay,
to,
that's fine.
let's not get into a quiz,
okay.
or we'll end up debating all day.
Okay, so I'm
Do you have
just.
any more questions, Matthew?
Yes, let's just, let me get reset here. So
I
no
think we forgot.
market reports in regards to the cemetery being a negative thing?
No, I don't, I did not bring a market report suggesting the cemetery would be.
Okay. And, I mean, so.
Okay, we've heard your case on the cemetery, let's
So,
move on to the
no,
next
I've
question.
got one more question. So it's a 59, one more year, it would be 1960. So as per your cap rate chart, it gets 6 1/4, but you applied a 25% bonus to the cap rate?
No, not a 25% bonus, at 25.
Oh, sorry,
basis point
0.25.
adjustment. Yeah.
Okay. Those are my questions, thank you.
Mark, do you have any questions?
Yeah,
Of Matthew.
I have questions.
I'm not a Matthew, of
A question.
Jared.
Sure.
Sorry, Jared.
Yeah.
I'm perplexed by this notion that the market would look askance at renting adjacent to a cemetery. You said you don't have anything that would give us data on this. What conceivably is it? Is this a noisy place? Is it a brownfield?
No, it's not.
Are people reluctant to walk through it at night?
I think-
What reason
I
would
would
there
say
be?
that they were probably reluctant to walk through a cemetery at night, yes.
Okay, would there be some place for them to walk through
No.
at this cemetery?
I'm saying that adjacency to a cemetery would likely cause a depression in property.
Okay, but you can't give us data, so you gotta give us a good argument why people don't want to decide it.
I don't have evidence that I've submitted here, but I do know that the city has recognized this as a site influence. I don't think they're suggesting it's a positive site influence. The only
But you
time-
can't show us that the city applies a negative valuation. You can't show
It's
us
in their-
an example.
It's in their property details, we've agreed that it's in there.
But are you handing that out today to show
No, I'm
us
not, but it's-
what the
He's
amount
given
of
it to you in
valuation is?
verbal.
No, okay, no, I haven't.
Okay. That's all my question.
Ken,
I have no questions.
and I've got none. Let's move on to the next property. Next property will be 516 Tilhurst Street. Amount of assessed value. When you're ready, Matthew.
Okay. File number 19-2309, roll number 1208-0024-100, 516 Tilhurst Street. Assessed value for the 20 suites is $1,713,000. It's 61. It's highly similar to the property that we just discussed. In terms of net operating income, we're actually about $6,000, rather closer to $5,000 lower in terms of net operating income. So we've got the 5.3 cap Asian area. I'm not going to talk about the income and expenses because we are so, it's not really under dispute. So same area as the last property without belaboring it. That's my evidence.
Questions?
Yeah, just quickly. Okay, so again, we'll get to the cemetery argument again, but we can recognize that whether we think it's positive or negative, this building is also.
I think we'll just say that he's answered that from the
Okay,
last
that's
time we've heard it. Let's move on.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't need
Again,
to hear about cemeteries anymore.
1961, year build, no age variance,
That's
correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, and Class D construction, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, now you've included a sale here, but that seems extremely high. Did you look into that sale?
It's old and I didn't put any weight on it.
Okay. Now all of your inputs are modeled, I will suggest, on
Yes.
page 3?
Yes.
Okay. And for your rent comps, do any of them have a site influence?
Not sure.
Okay. And do any of these properties have vacancy discounts?
Not sure.
Okay, and are you aware of any of the vacancy, general vacancy rates in relation to the rents that they're asking on these
No.
properties? No? Okay. Okay, that is fine, those are my questions, thanks.
Ken,
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Mark,
No questions.
on with your presentation, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, so again, 516 Tilhurst, now this building is 1961, so it's 2 years after its neighbor. We've got 2.5 stories, 7 bachelor suites, 6 one-bedrooms, 7 two-bedrooms. The city is suggesting a value of $1,713,000. We are requesting $1,537,000. Building is presently being used as a multifamily res structure. Now it is also right across from it's a heritage church that still has Sunday services. The site size is 10,277. It's zoned R2, and we have 20 units. And again, there's a negative site influence on the property. So we are using the assessor is using 5.3%. We are using 6.25, and the resulting market value is therefore 1,537,068, rounded to 1,537,000. Again, we are, now what's interesting is, when we look at the potential gross rents, we are at $183,055. The model is suggesting $183,763, so we're very close. But what the model is not factoring in are the large amounts of discounts that are being paid as, let's call those inducements, for whatever reason. There's some issues with getting, we have to induce people through rental discounts. Okay, so our effective gross rent is 174, city's 178. We end up higher than the city with our EGI based on the fact that we recognize that there's some revenue that comes by way of laundry and parking. The model is suggesting an expense ratio of 49.3%. Our actuals are indicating 47.3. Again, a 6.25 cap on our NOI of 96,000, again, which is higher than the city's, gives us an indicated market value of 1,537,000. And we ask that this assessment be amended to 1,537,000. I've got some photos as well as the financials from the owner. Thank you.
Questions, Matthew?
No questions, thank you.
Mark?
No questions.
Ken?
No questions, Mr.
No
Chair.
questions for me? Let's move on to our next property.
Can I go to Washington real quick?
Sure, better still shut it off. Kill it. I don't know, we should have held you up. We should have speeded. Run. the meeting back to order. The next property we're gonna deal with is 289 Pacific. We'll be dealing with liability taxation, amount of assessed value, and classification of property. So you will be starting first.
Thank you very much. All right, so the argument that we heard from Country Club Boulevard, I'd like that to carry forward in terms of the appropriateness of this classification. Okay, so this is 289 Pacific Avenue. This is a Manitoba Housing and Renewal Corps seniors, subsidized seniors housing resource. It was built in 1978. Again, we're in Chinatown here.
Can you read the roll number?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Sorry, custom to that. It's, the roll number is 130801220000, and the file number is 19-3697.
Thank you.
Okay, again, we're in Chinatown, 289 Pacific Avenue. This is a subsidized seniors housing complex built in 1978. It's a high-rise with 13 stories. There are 88 total suites. That's originally built for the Chinese population in Chinatown, and I note that number 88 is good fortune, so that's interesting. 77 bachelor suites that are 350 square feet each. 11 one-bedrooms, which are 450 square feet. Now, again, 289 Pacific, 13 stories, and that's Princess and Pacific. You'll perhaps remember this lot here is where the old Shanghai was. The building has no parking. The city lists 5 stalls, but I've been there twice now, and I can guarantee you there's no parking associated with this building. So for the purposes of this exercise, we are disputing the assessor's cap rate of 5%, and we are instead using a cap rate of 6.5%. Now, it's typical that for social housing, when we have subsidized rents, we can't look at the actual rents in place because we'd end up with a negative NOI. We'd end up with effectively a highest and best use for land value argument. So we're accepting the market rent put forth by the city, but we are suggesting that the next prudent purchaser or investor would see a property built under a limited dividend agreement, a property that has achieved no economic profit since 1978, and a building that was built for the purposes of senior social housing, as well as the negative suite mix and size. Those would all be factors that would give you pause. So instead of 5%, which we think is aggressively low, we've said that typically we use a 6% cap on a building like this if it were built to perform in the free and open market. But instead, we have adjusted that by 50 basis points, as is our methodology when it comes to subsidized social housing. So we're asking for a value of $4,344,000 for this assessment cycle. You can see I've got some photos here in my appendix. This is what it looks like. It's all exterior photos. Now, I will note that we almost got stuck here. They tend to block this. There's a little roundabout here that was, when I was there at least, it was blocked off. So the parking that I think the city is suggesting belongs to this building is actually belongs to this church. There's signs everywhere saying as much. And it's not only does it have no parking, it's very difficult to navigate this very tight kind of roundabout. All right, so that's the building details. Now, I also note that the neighborhood of Chinatown is I would suggest, is objectively not desirable. There's an extremely low population there. I've included a crime map that shows the sort of drastic rise in property crimes within the reference period. The reference period starts about here, and we can see that there's a disproportionately high amount of crime in this area and a disproportionately low population. I believe the census says there's about 650 people there. And the average median household income is, the median household income was $22,886 versus a citywide average of $68,331. So that gives you a sense of the neighborhood. It's an economically depressed area. So with all those points being considered, we believe that a cap rate of 6.5% is reasonable and appropriate. Thank you.
Questions, Matthew?
Just quickly on class, do you know how small, you know how large the suites are?
Yeah, 350 for the bachelors, 450 for the one bedrooms.
Are there any, is there any documentation in your package?
No, that's from my representative at Manitoba Housing.
Okay. And is there any documentation in regards to the ages of the people in there?
Documentation regarding the ages. You know, this is certainly a seniors home. Is that, we're not disputing that this is a seniors home, am I?
Well, it says, just in your preamble, it says it tends, subsidized social housing resorts that tends to the needs of low-income seniors. Just, I don't know the definition, your definition of seniors.
It's a seniors housing resource. It's listed with age and opportunity, so that's in my brief. Age and opportunities for seniors housing.
Is there any age indicated?
Age and opportunities for properties that are for individuals who are 55 plus.
Okay. And just in terms of the value on this property, it's in 1978. Your 1980 to 1997 Altus bracket cap rate is 5 3/4, correct?
Sorry, say that again?
Your 1980 to 1997
Yeah.
Altus bracket is 5 3/4,
Right,
correct?
for regular properties, sure. So this would be a starting point.
Mhm.
Now, I'll note too that you've broken your bracket in the middle of the 1970s, so I'm not sure that the bracketing question is appropriate here, but sure, yeah, 80 to 97, we would say typically would see a cap rate of 5 3/4, that's correct.
Are there any properties in this area that have been renovated? Like in terms of,
I'm sure there's
like
properties.
230 Princess, the Edge?
The
on
Edge on
Princess?
Sure. Are you suggesting that this is anything like the Edge on Princess?
I'm just saying, does that not show that there's some demand in the area?
What's the vacancy at the Edge on Princess?
Oh, I'm asking you first.
I don't know what the demand is, because I don't know I know that they built that, but I'm also aware of the Bag Factory lofts. I think the vacancy is fairly high there. Do I think that there's a lot of demand for housing in Chinatown on the private side? I would say no, I don't think so.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Mark?
There's a lot of census data in here. What is it that you want us
I
to do with
I
this?
include the entire census just to show you the median income, just to give you a sense of the area.
Yeah.
I'm making I'm trying to show you that the area has a low population, a low income population, and then I've included the crime rate to show you that it would be objectively undesirable on that basis.
And then you agree with the city.
Did I hear you make a reference to age and opportunity?
Yes.
And what is that?
Age and Opportunity is a group who, I suppose they take applications for seniors housing and they guide seniors to appropriate accommodations for things like transportation and housing and things like that.
They're not an owner of
No,
seniors
they're a
housing
government agency.
complexes, right? Okay. Okay, that's all my questions.
Ken?
Okay, so you mentioned there's no parking here.
Zero parking.
Zero. Has there been any recent changes to the property?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That concludes the matters for today. Gentlemen, have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Catch you on the next go-round. Let's close the meeting now. Start at the back end.
Okay. A contrarian.